certain characteristics or absence of certain characteristics like loya or sleep. So that is a position where after practicing bhakti, some of the anarthas are destroyed, at least enough of the anarthas are destroyed, that one can practice bhakti without too many obstacles. So, and that is caused by not just destruction of anarthas, but increase of bhakti. So we start bhakti with a little seed. It begins to grow, gets bigger and bigger in the field with faith. And this is all happening within the jiva. So we're planting the seed of bhakti in the jiva, actually. huh? Not in your mind or anything, but the jiva is developing or manifesting bhakti, starting as a seed, gradually grows up. So bhakti is becoming more and more prominent, and the anarthas are getting pushed away as a result. So as bhakti grows, anarthas get less and less. So when we reach Nishta stage, the bhakti has grown sufficiently that the anarthas are not strong enough to interfere. They're still there, but not strong enough. We continue bhakti from that point, then the bhakti becomes more and more, and the anarthas become less and less. So bhakti becomes more prominent, huh? And therefore we can see the qualities of bhakti manifesting more and more. huh? So after nishta, as the bhakti increases, we get to the stage called ruchi, which means taste. So in the morning, somebody asked about taste. So the actual taste, of course, there's Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, bhakti itself, inherent from the very beginning, has some taste in it. Otherwise, we don't practice it. Yeah? We like it, so we have some taste for it. But it becomes quite prominent after Nishta, where the bhakti becomes larger and anarthas become less. Huh? So this is called the stage of ruchi. As I said, ruchi is there all along, but it becomes quite obvious at this point. So how is ruchi recognized? One is, even if you're constantly hearing and chanting and doing the angas of bhakti, you don't feel tired. There's no problem for you, no obstacle at all. You just keep doing it. Yeah? So that's called ruchi. And by doing this, the activities, one becomes so attached to them, one cannot give them up. So one is like addicted to them. Huh? So this is the stage of ruchi. So bhakti becomes very relishable. And because it's relishable, you don't want to give it up. So Krishna Chakravarti Thakur gives an example of how that ruchi develops. So if we have a defect of the liver, which we call jaundice, you could not taste sugar. Sugar tastes bad. You don't want to take sugar. But the cure for jaundice is to take sugar. We don't want to take it. So we don't want to take the medicine. It tastes bitter. However, an intelligent person will understand that I must take it to get cured. I must take the sugar to get cured. And though it is distasteful, then he takes the sugar. And then gradually he gets cured and he develops a taste. So, similarly, with bhakti, in the beginning, because we have so many material attachments, bhakti does not taste nice. We'd rather do other things. So rather than chant or worship the deity, we want to do other things. So that means distaste. We have distaste. But we also have faith in Scripture. Scripture tells us we should gradually detach ourselves from material enjoyment, become attached to Krishna. And the way we do that is by practicing bhakti. So it's not so tasteful, but we begin to practice bhakti anyway, because we have our intelligence there to tell us, like the person who's sick. And he says, well, I have to take the sugar because doctor told me. And I'll get cured eventually, and then it'll taste sweet. So he continues, and then gradually the anarthas get less and less, and the sweetness of bhakti becomes more and more. So when you can taste that sweetness, then that's called ruchi. The jiva's heart, which is contaminated by ignorance and other kleshas, becomes cured by the medicine of hearing, chanting, and other devotional processes, which in the beginning may not be so tasteful and eventually develops a taste for these activities. Yeah. So there's a gradual development. It's not sudden usually, it's gradual. So there are different types of ruchi. So one ruchi will depend on excellence of material elements. This is not so good as far as bhakti, because it depends on material things. uh, and it's a sign that we have impurities of the heart. So, for instance, uh, we may be attracted to kirtan, but we're attracted because somebody is a very good singer. You may know music, you may know ragas, you may know fancy towels and all this. Oh, it's very nice music. And he's appreciating all the material aspects of it. So that's a ruchi, but it is material. So that's the inferior ruchi. So the real ruchi does not depend on the excellence of external or material elements. He's attracted to kirtan because it's non-different from Krishna. And if the person is singing badly or whatever, it doesn't matter. He's attracted because it is Krishna's name. So this is a sign of purity of the heart, that we're attracted to the actual name of Krishna, not just the externals. So at this stage, when he's developed that taste, then he begins to lament his previous condition. Often we see devotional literature, the poetry, and there the devotees lamenting how he was involved in material world and absorbed in material activities and how fallen he was. So this is a characteristic of a person who's developed ruchi. He laments his previous condition. And he's constantly hearing and chanting an association of devotees. Well, devotee association, constant engagement in activities. And he's no longer interested in material activities. He rejects material activities completely. Another characteristic is he takes refuge of the Dhamma, the holy place of the Lord. He doesn't like the material world, so he takes refuge of Vrindavan. So these are characteristics of a devotee who's devout. There's still an artist there, but they're much less. So therefore, the intrinsic nature of bhakti manifests more and more. He can spontaneously do his devotional service with great eagerness and taste. It was a very, very positive stage of devotional service. So, of course, this is also these characteristics we see here are also characteristics of Raghunaga Bhakti, living in the holding on, hearing, constantly chanting, avoiding material society, etc. So that's the stage of. And then we come to Asa. So this is the sixth shower. Asakti literally means attachment. In one sense, it is very similar to Ruchi because it is very, very positive, and there's less and less anartas, more and more attachment to the Supreme Lord. So Asakti, we had the plant of bhakti, with the seed and the first two leaves, and the leaves go up. That. When we get to Asakti, that's like buds. So now we're getting flower buds coming out. And when we get to bhava, flower. When we get to prema, fruit appears. So the plant gradually develops. So asakti is the stage just before bhava. Bhava is the flower. So this is the bud of the flower. So it's very close to getting a realization of Krishna. What is the difference from ruchi? So in ruchi, we have a taste for hearing and chanting. Of course, Krishna's there, but we like to hear and chant. In asakti, we're hearing and chanting, but the taste is for Krishna. in the hearing and chanting. A little bit of emphasis different. So not so much the process, but the subject of the process, Krishna, attraction. So we're asakti is attachment to Krishna. Ruchi is taste for the processes of hearing and chanting. And asakti is attachment to Krishna in the hearing and chanting. Slight difference. So in the asakti stage, the anarthas have been further reduced. As we explained this morning, in asakti stage, by the end of asakti, all of the anarthas due to papa and punya were gone. And previous to that, actually, the other anarthas were gone by ruchi. The other ones were gone by this. So most of the anarthas are gone, and what remains is the effects of aparad to go into bhava stage. Of course, here also there may be some effects of aparad also, but all the other things have basically they're very, very little, especially things due to karmas. Very, very little. In ruchi, we have to make some effort to concentrate on the Lord and withdraw from material objects. Asakti, no effort is required. We just attracted to Krishna completely. So this is more spontaneous. So some effort is involved in ruchi, no effort involved in asakti. So there's very, very strong attachment to Krishna in all ways. So we can meditate on Krishna, chant his name with great concentration. So it's very, very positive stage. Okay. So because of this great concentration, there is an appearance of Krishna, not a real appearance, but like a reflection of Krishna. So almost you can see Krishna directly. Reflection, a flash of Krishna manifest jiva at this point. So very, very close to the bhava stage. So very, very positive state. What are the characteristics? Okay, attachment to devotees and hearing from them. So hearing and chanting are very important. Sees everything in relation to attaining Krishna. So he'll look at everything in the material world and he'll see how it is. It's a way of becoming more attached to Krishna. We see in prema, a person thinks that everything is in relation to Krishna and how everything's attached to Krishna and prema. Here, the devotee is thinking how everything is related to try to attain Krishna. And he's always thinking of how to attain Krishna. And he has very little regard for the opinions of people in this material world. So in Ruchi, of course, there was also great detachment. Here, even more detachment. Very, very disinterested in the whole material world. Thus, generally, these people go off to Vrindavan and sit there by themselves, chatting with the devotees. So, very, very positive state. So, his only attempt is to get closer and closer to Krishna. So that was a short chapter. Now we come to Bhava. This is the seventh shower. Rupa Goswami explains that Bhava actually means the appearance of Sthayi Bhava, which was one of the elements of rasa. This was the relationship that you have between Krishna and self, which may be Shanta Dasya Sakya. Mixes with the other elements, then it becomes rasa. So the basic relationship with Krishna, the emotional relationship with type of relationship, is called bhava, and that is spiritual. Sthayi bhava, of course, is part of the itself. We perform bhakti to cultivate a relationship with Krishna. So that relationship manifests in the bhava stage. We're developing it. Sadhana. Bhava is the manifestation of that relationship. Sthayi bhava. Well, as I mentioned, this is the flower, like the flower. It's also called rati. So in the Bhagavatam, we don't hear the word bhava so often, but we hear the word rati more often. And even in Nectar Devotion, rati is often used instead of. So this stage is important because Krishna manifests his form, Satchidananda form, at this stage. We saw in Asakti that there was a reflection in the heart. In Bhava stage, there's an actual appearance of the heart. And then we start getting bliss because of the sthai bhava. Then rasa begins to develop. And from rasa we get the bliss. So this is a very significant stage. First realization of the Supreme Lord. Even just a drop of that realization of the Lord will wipe out avidya, which was the whole cause of klesha. So we saw there were the different kleshas, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesh, 5 aspects of klesha. So avidya was the root. So we go asakti, all the karmas are destroyed, everything is destroyed, and we get to bhava. Then the very root of everything, avidya, gets destroyed also. So very, very positive stage. So we can say no more anartas. The problem is there may be effective aparat separately. So there, it's not a completely pure state. There's still some anarta there because of aparat, not because of karmas, etc. So we had this whole thing about karma, etc. So end of asakti, the karmas are basically gone. And in bhava stage, ahankara, we call the granthi, the knot of ahankara, gets destroyed also, and avidya gets destroyed. So it's a very, very significant stage. This stage, of course, in the first stage, we had these 2 symptoms, destruction of sin and bestowal of good qualities, kleshagni and supata. In bhava stage, 2 more qualities manifest, sudurlabha and moksha kriti. So durlabha means very rare. So what is rare? Bhakti is lots. Preach bhakti around everybody. But to get to bhava is very rare. To see Krishna is rare. So the gyanis, the yogis, and the karmis cannot see Krishna. At best, the Paramatma yogis get to see Paramatma. They don't get to see Krishna. So realization of Krishna, very rare. In that sense, sudurlabha. It is not rare if we follow the process of bhakti. If we follow other processes, yes, impossible. As we saw in the morning, by charities, austerities, study of the Vedas, jnana, you cannot please Krishna. By bhakti, you can please Krishna. If we do bhakti, then it is not so rare. Still, you have to go through the process of sadhana to get to bhava. In that sense, it is also rare for devotees to get to bhava stage and see Krishna. But it is not rare in the sense that every bhakti is available to everybody. We have to reach the stage up, then we can see Krishna. So it is very rare or impossible for people who do not practice bhakti. So, other processes, we do them forever, but we will never get to bhava by those processes. So bhakti very special in that sense. The second quality manifests is moksha lagu kriti, disregard for liberation. And thinking liberation is insignificant and useless. In jnana and yoga, liberation is the goal. It's very rare, and it's the goal. and is to be treasured. In bhakti, it is useless, kicked out. We don't want liberation at all. So this is quite unique to bhakti. Even in karma yoga, many karma yogis will understand, yes, we have artha, dharma, kama, and then we should go for moksha eventually, but we're not ready for moksha yet. So they're somewhat familiar with liberation, and maybe they desire it a little bit. But devotees opposite. They don't like liberation at all. This becomes very obvious in bhava stage. Why? Because the devotee has a realization of Krishna and he experiences the bliss of rasa. And therefore, the bliss of liberation or freedom from karma in the material world becomes insignificant, useless. What to speak of? The bliss of Svargaloka or Brahmaloka. So in bhava, that this becomes quite prominent, that uh, liberation is completely rejected. This is a quality unique to bhakti, rejection of liberation. They're not found in jnana and yoga. They want liberation there. So this is a very special quality of bhakti. So these two qualities manifest in the bhava stage. So bhava stage, we have a realization of Krishna, rasa develops, we get an experience of bliss. And liberation is automatically achieved. We're beyond material world at that point because karmas are all destroyed. Ahankar is destroyed, avidya gets destroyed. We've surpassed liberation already. And the only thing that remains, an obstacle or an anartha, is effects of aparadhas previously committed. So that's a little bit of a problem there, as we see in the case of Bharat. Now, bhava is such that it attracts Krishna. Of course, bhakti in any form attracts Krishna. Even mixed bhakti will attract Krishna. So Krishna was attracted to Gajendra. That was mixed bhakti. He was attracted to Dhruva. Dhruva had mixed bhakti also. He wanted to get a kingdom. Gajendra wanted to get free from the crocodile. That's mixed bhakti. Lord was attracted to that even. So even impure bhakti, the Lord is more attracted to that than he's attracted to jnana or karma or whatever. But we don't see Krishna delivering a jnani or a yogi or a karmi, but he will deliver even a mixed bhakti. So, yes, Lord is attracted to all types of bhakti, but he's even more attracted to a person practicing pure bhakti, more attracted to that. But he's even more attracted to a person practicing pure bhakti who's got to bhava stage. Krishna's very attracted to that. That's why he reveals himself on the stage. So he's more attracted to the bhav bhakti, and he reveals himself to that person. So Krishna reveals himself to the devotee becomes more attracted to Krishna. So there is spontaneous increase of that attraction in bhava stage. So we cannot see Krishna with the material eye or hear Krishna with the material ear. If one comes to bhava stage, one can see Krishna, one can hear Krishna, one can touch Krishna. What does this mean? It means we have developed spiritual senses. We have developed spiritual body. So not only do we see Krishna in bhava stage, we also develop a spiritual body, of which we not only see Krishna, but we can serve Krishna in various ways. So this is a very unique feature, not available and not even desired by yogis or jnanis. They don't want a body. They don't want to see Krishna. The devotee manifests a spiritual body and he serves Krishna. So he can see Krishna, smell Krishna, hear Krishna, touch Krishna, even taste Krishna. These are all the experiences that a devotee can have. And these will gradually develop through the bhava stage into prema. So, therefore, at the bhava stage, then we get what's called the sarup. Some devotee asked about developing your sarup. So this is where the sarup manifests. Where does it come from? It's eternal. It's spiritual. Everything spiritual cannot be created. It's eternal. So your spiritual body is also eternal. But where is it? When we're in the material world. Because it's in the spiritual world with Krishna somewhere. And then it manifests when we get to Bhava stage. So that's mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. Uh, the the bhava, which is eternal, manifests in the heart. It's not created; it simply manifests in the heart at bhava stage, the sthaya bhava, and of course the form of the Lord manifests, and the form of the devotee manifests. All these are eternal. So the bhava stage is very important because we get the sthaya bhava, we get Krishna manifesting, we get the devotee's spiritual body manifesting, the spiritual senses, and all that manifesting in bhava stage. And then consequently we get the experience of bliss as a result of that. So because of this development of the spiritual body and the experience in the spiritual body, the material body becomes useless. We have no interest in the material body at all. And of course, we mentioned in sadhana, we develop spiritual qualities, subhada. So more spiritual qualities begin to develop at this stage. Of course, they're developing in the jiva, but that they manifest also within our body, etc. So the spiritual bodies become much more prominent at this stage. One aspect of bhava is possessiveness or mamata. We become very attached to Krishna. Of course, in prema, that mamata becomes extreme. So that's the difference between bhava and prema. It becomes extreme, the attachment to Krishna. And the bliss is described in Nectar Devotion as being one ray of the bliss of prema. So it is like prema, but little bit of one ray of the sun. And when we get to prema, then it's like the sun. So the bliss is much, much more. But in comparison to the bliss of Brahman, the bliss of bhava is like an ocean, and the bliss of Brahman is like a little drop of water. So, relatively speaking, even bhava makes liberation seem like insignificant. But if you get prema, then even bhava becomes insignificant. Okay. So, because the person is so absorbed in the Supreme Lord internally, externally, he may appear to be a madman. He may not respond to people in this material world at all. Why should he? Because he's not attached to the material body or anything in this material world. He's relating directly to the Supreme Lord. So, bhava has various types. If we do Vaidhi, sadhana, bhakti, following rules and regulations, worshiping the Lord with reverence, we develop a type of bhava, and we realize the Lord, like Krishna or Vishnu, and we have reverence for him, respect. So this is somewhat weaker in comparison to the other type from Raganuga Bhakti. So it's less intense, and that's less intense because we always see the Lord as a powerful being. He's the Supreme Lord. If we go through Raganuga Bhakti, in which we cultivate intimate relationship with Krishna without rules and regulations, without seeing him as Supreme Lord, then the bhava that results is very spontaneous and more intense, much stronger. And we see Krishna not as Lord, but as a friend or lover or uh, child, etc. So two types of bhava according to our sadhana. The Raganuga sadhana, we get result, one result. We do Vaidhi, we get a more formal result, like this. So both are Raganuga and Vaidhi are sadhanas. They both lead to bhava, and they both lead to prema. But due to the influence of the sadhana, the bhava and the prema also get affected. So we realize if we're both worshiping Krishna in Vaidhi or Raganuga, we can realize Krishna in any case. But the resultant, Krishna is slightly different. We have Krishna in Goloka or Krishna in Dwarka. So that's the difference. So we'll see Krishna with through Vaidhi Bhakti, but we will still see him as some powerful living entity. Then if we do it Raganuga Bhakti, we'll see Krishna. No, he's not a god at all. He's simply my child, as in Mother Yasoda or the elders of Goloka, or he's my friend, that's all. He's not God. Yeah. So that's Krishna in Goloka. So that's established through Raganuga Bhakti. So there's two types that way, but then there's five types. So we can have Shantarasa or Shanta Bhava, which will mix with the other elements to become Shantarasa. This is very peaceful. Often people who have practiced jnana or yoga previously and then take to pure bhakti can develop Shantarasa because they have a preference for a very peaceful existence. So of all the rasas, Shanta is the most peaceful. Of all the rasas, Madhurya is the most unpeaceful. Very emotional. Huh? So the gopis are always full of emotions. They're falling on the ground and fainting or whatever like this. Huh? So very extreme emotions. Huh? Some people don't like extreme emotions, so you can go for Shantarasa then. Always peaceful, steady, no ups and downs. Very, very, very steady. Of course, there is rasa there. So the Kumaras are like an example of Shantarasa, and some sages in the spiritual world are in Shantarasa. Uh, so they do have sattvika bhavas, ecstatic symptoms, crying, etc. They will have devachari bhavas. They have vibhava, Krishna is there, devotee is there. So there's all the elements of rasa are there. So they experience rasa, but it's a very weak form of rasa, weak combination. Not much intimacy there. So that is one type of rasa, shanta rasa. It is said in Nectar Devotion that in Goloka, the very young children and the very old people may have shanta rasa because they can't have the other rasas like friendship, like cowherd boy or parent or even a gopi or anything like that. So the elders, very elders, will have like a shanta rasa, and the very young children, little babies, again will have some relationship with Krishna, but it's also not developed. So it's called shanta rasa also. And we discussed this morning that when Krishna went into the arena of Kamsa, some of the yogis there, the sages, and the looking at Krishna when he was fighting with Kamsa, with the wrestlers of Kamsa, then they were in Shantarasa and they saw Krishna. He is the supreme Brahman. So, a little more intense than that is Dasya Rasa, or Prita Rasa, in which one serves the Lord. Now, this is They're also, it's the common rasa with other forms of the Lord, like with the Nrsimhadeva, Rama, or Vishnu. Dasya is very common. It's there with Krishna also in Dwarka and in Goloka even, where Krishna has little cowherd boys who serve him in Dasya rasa. So this is more intense than Shanta. There is a relationship where Supreme Lord is superior, devotee is inferior because he's the servant. But it's not covered with the idea that Krishna is Supreme Lord in Goloka because there's no concept like that. So the little cowherd boys serving Krishna, they don't see him as Supreme Lord, but they're serving in Dasya there. If they're in Dwarka and serving Krishna, as he has many servants there, then there is also Aishvarya, and they see Krishna as Supreme Lord also. So that's a weaker form of Dasya. If we go to Vaikuntha, then of course, Dasya very much combined with seeing Krishna as Supreme Lord, Aishvarya, much more. So Vishnu Chakravarti compares this to the taste of grape juice. It's sweeter. Maybe he did for Shantaras, maybe it's like water or sugarcane juice, maybe. I don't know. No, it's that sugarcane juice is like Sakya rasa. Okay? So we have Sakya equal. In Dasya, Krishna is superior, servant is less. In Sakya, Krishna and the cowherd boys are equal. Huh? So this is often praised as the best rasa because there's equality. Huh? And the taste is like sugarcane juice. So here there is more intimacy than in Dasya. A real confidentiality between friends is there. Huh? In Vatsalya rasa, the devotee is superior and Krishna is inferior. So it's the opposite of Dasya, where the devotee is inferior, Krishna is superior. Yeah? So this has more intensity in it. Yeah? And it's like jackfruit juice. So the sweetness is quite sweet. Yeah? And the most famous example of this is Yasoda. So she's considered to be the topmost person in Vatsalya. Yeah? Most intense Vatsalya for Krishna. So the final rasa is Madhurya rasa, which is like mango juice. So this is the relation of a Krishna with the gopis. Of course, we also have Krishna with the queens of Dwarka, but that's covered by Aishvarya. The queens see Krishna as Supreme Lord, so it is less intense. So the Madhurya rasa of Vrindavan, Goloka, is considered to be the best because it's not no covering of Aishvarya at all. They're most intense. So this is considered to be the most intense of all the rasas. So it's like mango juice. So one can cultivate in sadhana bhakti and then realize any of these sthai bhavas in bhava state. So in the bhava stage, the sthai bhava manifests, and so it's a relationship, but actually all the elements begin to manifest. So you must have the bhava, so it must be Krishna there and devotee. Sthai bhava manifests as bhava, and then the sattvika bhavas, anubhavas, and vibhacharya bhavas begin to manifest also. So therefore, we get some rasa development within bhava stage. It is not as complete as in prema, but at least it begins to develop here. So it is said also that in bhava stage, you may not see Krishna always, but sometimes. And we see an example of Narada Muni in the first canto that he got to bhava stage and he only saw Krishna once. Then the Lord said, I'm not going to appear to you again in this lifetime. So once in his lifetime only he saw Supreme Lord. But that seeing him once was enough to get him more eager to see the Lord. And after that, then he got prema. So one doesn't have constant vision of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes, periodic. And thus the rasa is not developed so fully. So we had these before we had these rasas developing. So combination produces the rasa, and we get some of this bliss resulting in bhava stage because of the rasa, but not so intense as in prema. Oh, okay. Okay. So we have the five primary rasas. So these are a must. If you develop bhava, you must have a primary rasa. Yeah. You cannot have a secondary rasa without a primary rasa. It must be a primary rasa. So, and this is one, it's called the sthayi bhava because it is permanent. It doesn't change. It's always there, eternally, once it's established. There may be a mixture. So you may have Sakya with a little Dasya. Yeah? So some cowherd boys are in friendship, but they also a little bit of servant. Yeah? Some cowherd boys like Balaram has a little Vatsalya because he's older than Krishna. He likes to protect Krishna. So the little Vatsalya mixed with his Sakya. And then some cowherd boys are pure Sakya, equal age, etc. Yeah? So we get mixtures often in the bhavas as well, Saya bhavas. But one is usually more prominent than the other. Well, there must be a primary rasa. And then we'll have the seven secondary rasas, like Hasya, Adbhuta, Virya, Karuna, Raudra, Bhayanak, and Vibhatsa, which I explained this morning in relation to seeing Krishna in the arena of Kamsa. Different people had different relationships. So these colors actually beside are the colors mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. So each rasa has a color as well. The Vatsalya is this crimson color. Madhurya rasa is dark blue, Shama, like Krishna's complexion. Yeah? Sakya is orangey color. Dasya is more grayish color. And Santa is white. Yeah? And then the secondary rasas are these colors. So Rodra is like dark red. Bhayanak is black. Fear. Disgust is dark blue. Karuna is like purple. Vira is golden color. Adbhuta is green. And Hasya is yellow. So the secondary rasas are temporary, not permanent, and they'll appear and disappear at different pastimes with Krishna. Yeah? Primary rasa is permanent, and secondary rasas will manifest now and then. Okay. So all the forms of Krishna are rasa. We saw in the first chapter of Madhurya Kadambini, Rasa Vaisaha, Taittiriya Upanishad. The Lord is rasa himself. So all the forms of the Lord are rasa. So you can develop bhava, sthayi bhava for any form of the Lord. You can develop prema for any form of the Lord. Though it says in Nectar Devotion that Krishna, anusilanam, that's the definition of bhakti, our acharyas say that Krishna means Krishna and other forms as well. So you can develop bhakti and practice pure bhakti for any form of the Lord and develop prema for that form of the Lord. So you can have prema for Nrsimhadev or Rama or Vishnu or Vamana or anyone. And it's bona fide. So in that relationship, you realize form of Vamana or Varaha or Nrsimhadev, you can experience rasa. Usually it's dasya rasa. And then you can experience bliss. However, Krishna is not just rasa. Krishna is rasamrita murti. He is the very form of all rasas. So he's a little bit different. Just like we have all water bodies, but then we have the ocean, which contains everything. So Krishna is all rasas in all possible forms. So very, very special. So bhava is the first experience of rasa. Okay. It's not final development, but it's the first experience of it. So these elements come together and they produce rasa and they produce bliss. It's not the final product, but it's on the way. So bhava and prema are very intimately related to each other. This is the flower, and then the fruit is the next stage. That's prema. So related, but slightly different. So slight experience of rasa here, full experience in prema. So in bhava stage, we will get the sattvika bhavas, for instance, manifesting, but they manifest sometimes, not intensely. So that means the rasa is not so intense, right, in bhava stage. Sometimes we get these appearances. Sometimes Krishna appears, sometimes he does not appear. So therefore, it's not a constant experience also. Okay. And so we come to the final chapter here, which is Prema. So this is the final result of bhakti, which started with Shraddha. And we go all the way up to Prema. And we develop the plant. So we started with the seed in the field, and we got the two leaves, got the leaves developing, the stem coming up, and finally we get the bud in Asakti, we get the flower in Bhava stage, and we get the fruit in Prema. Of course, it could be different fruits. We could get sugar cane or jackfruit or whatever, but the mango was the Madhurya rasa one. Yeah. So interestingly enough, the plant goes through all these stages with leaves and buds and flowers and fruit, but actually they also don't disappear. So the leaves are still there, the buds are still there, flowers are still there, and fruit are still there. So in Prema, everything is there. Oh, what does this mean? It means, of course, that the leaves were there, and it manifested Kleshikti and Subhada, the first two characteristics. Then we got uh, Moksha, Laguna Kriti, and Sudurlabha. That was there. And then in Prema, we get two more characters manifest. So in Prema, all six characteristics manifest. They don't disappear, but added more characteristics appear. Two, two, two. And we get six qualities manifesting in Prema. So, what is the characteristic? There was bliss in Bhava stage, Ananda. And in Prema, one of the unique qualities of the six qualities mentioned at the beginning of Nectar Devotion is Sandra Ananda, concentrated bliss. So there's bliss in Bhava, but there's concentrated bliss or Sandra Ananda in Prema. So there's sweetness in Bhava, but more sweetness in Prema. The other characteristic mentioned in Nectar Devotion, the sixth quality, a unique, is that Prema attracts Krishna. So generally, the devotee is trying to be attracted to Krishna, but in Prema, Krishna gets attracted to the devotee. A Krishna Akarshani. So in Prema, the devotee begins to control Krishna. So this is something that cannot be accomplished at all by jnana or yoga or karma or any of the process, and not even by lower stages of bhakti, not even by bhava. Krishna's kind of attracted, but here he's very attracted to the devotee, and he comes under the control of the devotee. So this is prema, very unique quality. So there was possessiveness of Krishna in Bhava stage. Now there's extreme possessiveness of Krishna. So it's very much like Bhava, but more extreme. Krishna is more attracted. One is attracted and possessive of Krishna. There is more bliss. So at this stage, one develops a greed for Krishna. And the definition of prema, no obstacles can stand in the way. One ignores all obstacles to meet Krishna. And the prime example, of course, of this is the gopis. So they cannot be obstructed. They cannot be obstructed by their parents. They cannot be obstructed by threats of dharma and this and whatever. They just forget everything and they go to Krishna. So there's prema means no obstructions. No. Even a momentary appearance of Krishna gives rise to great greed to attain Krishna again. So one has increased longing for the Supreme Lord, and consequently one gets more and more bliss. At this point, then Krishna appears in all the senses. So I said in Bhava stage, okay, you can hear Krishna, see Krishna, touch Krishna, etc. Periodically something. Here, they may happen all at once. So simultaneously you could see, hear, taste, touch Krishna, everything at once. So it's very, very intense experience. So Krishna first reveals his form to the eyes. Then he reveals his fragrance to the nose. Uh, Krishna's fragrance of his body or the fragrance of his flower garland. Uh, Then he reveals sound, his voice or his flute to the ear. Then touch of Krishna is there, and it reveals his youthfulness. And then taste, for those in Madhurya Rasa, where he kisses the devotee. You taste Krishna also. Huh? So all the different senses become inundated with experience of Krishna. So they may happen individually, but then they can happen all at once. So this is called audarja, very, very intense experience. And then with his kripa shakti or his mercy, the devotee is able to experience Krishna with all these qualities simultaneously. Those are very rare experience. So Krishna can be experienced by all the senses simultaneously by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Within prema, there are two forms of all the different rasas in Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. Meeting Krishna and separation. So if the devotee meets the Supreme Lord, Krishna or any other form of the Lord, they get the highest bliss. Then Krishna may separate and the devotee feels the greatest pain. But the separation is not eternal. Again, one meets Krishna. And with the spiritual world, of course, one is eternally with the Supreme Lord. So there is meeting and separation, even in the spiritual world, but on short terms. For instance, Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj separate from Krishna in the morning because he goes out in the cow field herding the cows with the cowherd boys. And then they meet Krishna when he comes back in the evening. So there's meeting and separation. Similarly, Krishna meets with the gopis at nighttime, then he separates from the gopis in the daytime. Krishna meets the cowherd boys in the morning, separates from them in the evening. So there's meeting and separation going on daily. So in the meeting form, yes, very great joy, and separation, and there is some sort of lamentation. But we should not think that this lamentation is material. It is part of prema itself. And so it adds to the bliss. It is quite different from material lamentation. So material lamentation means you can get separated. It doesn't mean you join again. No, you could be separated forever. Person dies, they don't come back. So in the spiritual world, there's meeting separation going on like that. And the separation does not increase your joy of meeting necessarily in the material world. You can just end with separation. That's it. No more meeting at all. So just lamentation. So the meeting and separation are part of prema itself in the spiritual world. Okay. So this is actually the verse from Nectar and Devotion where it goes through the different stages: faith, sadhu sangha, vajna kriya, anartha riti, nishta, ruchi, asakti, bhava, and then prema. So in this Madhurya Kadambini, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has analyzed and described these different stages, one after the other, so that we can understand them and identify their different characteristics. Oh, very, very useful for us. When we get to prema is a very general term, and actually there are higher and higher levels beyond just prema. So we will get sneha. So these are even higher fruits on the tree. So sneha means the prema is very thick, the heart melts. And one cannot tolerate any separation from the Lord. Man is usually displayed at Madhurya Rasa. In this feature, anger and pride may manifest. The gopis become angry at Krishna, or they refuse to see Krishna, etc. This is man. Pranaya means, of course, affection. It's like sneha, but more intense. No respect at all. Very, very familiar, very, very close and intimate. And even though you should respect, you don't because of this great affection. This is called pranaya. And this is manifested quite strongly in Sakya Rasa, where the cowherd boys are friends of Krishna. They don't see him as superior at all, and they act as equals. Raga uh, is quite prominent in Vatsalya Rasa. So the sneha, uh, by the appearance of Krishna, turns sorrow into happiness. So that's called raga. And the devotee will do anything for the pleasure of Krishna, even give up their life. A very, very great attachment to the Supreme Lord at this stage. So the great devotees like Yasoda have very strong raga. Anuraga. This is more intense. This does not manifest in anyone except persons in Madhurya Rasa. So the like the queens of Dwarka or the gopis. So it is experience that the love is ever fresh. It's constantly new. Every time you experience it, it is different. It is newer. That's called anuraga. And the highest stage is called mahabhava. And this is only experienced by the gopis in Vrindavan, not even by the queens of Dwarka. No, at this stage, the separation becomes intolerable. And there's all sorts of unique symptoms of this. And the highest person of all, of course, experiences this is Radharani. And so in this way, prema is very general. Bhava or rati is before that. Prema becomes more intense, more uh, bliss, more possessiveness, etc. But then we have higher stages in which the possessiveness and the bliss become more and more intense, intimacy become more and more intense until we get to Mahabhava with Radha and Krishna, the ultimate. So, of course, all the gopis have Madhurya Rasa, all very intense, but the most intense form is with Radha. Of all the gopis, she has the most intense Madhurya Rasa, in the most special Mahabhava. So she has symptoms of Mahabhava that no other gopis even experience. So, highest of all. Unfortunately, if we're in the material world and we have a material body, we cannot experience these higher levels. So if you want to get to sneha, pranaya, raga, anuraga, etc., we need a spiritual body in the spiritual world without a material body. So that's why the Supreme Lord often helps the devotee give up the material body and just go to the spiritual world so he can experience higher types of bliss, higher types of rasa. We talked about attachment or mamata, and that's experienced in bhava and prema. Attachment or possessiveness and extreme attachment. We also have material attachment, which is the opposite. So people in the material world may have very strong material attachments. All of this is under ahankara, and we think of I and mine. Mine is mamata, possessiveness. I is concept of who I am. And this results in material bondage. So if we're in the material world not practicing bhakti, then this type of possessiveness and ahankara, very, very strong. If we destroy the ahankara, a material identity, we end up with liberation. No more identity. But in bhakti, we do something else. We have a new identity. We identify ourselves as a servant of the Lord. So our ahankara gets directed to Krishna. It's not destroyed. The sense of I remains. We don't try to hide it or destroy it. Yeah. So, therefore, we usually think of ahankara as very bad, but actually it has a good aspect. And it's also necessary. So there is ahankara in the spiritual world. Everybody has a sense of I. I am the servant of Krishna. I am a cowherd boy. I'm a gopi. So they do have an identity there, and they have possessiveness of Krishna. So possessiveness is not wrong. Identity is not wrong, but it should be related to Krishna. And this helps produce prema. If we don't have that identity and we don't have attachment to Krishna, we don't get prema. So very, very essential to have that spiritual ahankara. We destroy the material ahankara, but we should not destroy the spiritual ahankara. So that possessiveness of the material world and the possessiveness of Krishna go opposite ways. As we develop bhakti at the beginning, in Shraddha stage, the material ahankara very strong. As we go through bhajana kriya, anartana vritti, nishta, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker until in ruchi, it's ekadesha vartani. It's only a little bit of portion there. A sakti stage, a very small trace, ganda, and bhava, very, very small trace. And then in prema, no material attachment, ahankara identity at all. And then the opposite goes for developing bhakti, our identity with Krishna. So in Shraddha stage, very, very slight trace of, okay, I'm a servant of Krishna, etc. In Sadhu Sangha, a little bit stronger. In Bhajana Kriya, we're going through that, through an Artana Vritti, and small portion of, identity with serving Krishna, etc. And by Nishta stage, quite prominent. Of course, we see both are prominent. We have some ahankara for material things, some ahankara for Krishna, kind of balancing each other out in Nishta stage. But when we get to Ruchi and Asakti, then the identity with Krishna becomes stronger and stronger, and the identity with matter becomes weaker and weaker. So when we get to Asakti, material identity is just a trace, and Krishna almost complete. We get to Bhava, quite complete identity with Krishna, and identity with material things, very small trace at all. Prema, then extreme attachment to Krishna, extreme identity as servant of Krishna, and no material ahankara at all. So they reverse, opposite ways. Yeah, it's the same thing. Okay. So in other words, there's a gradual shift as we go through bhakti. As we go through bhakti, gradually attachment to Krishna increases and attachment to matter decreases until prema is a state where nothing, no relation with matter at all, complete attachment to Krishna. So we can also trace concentration on the Supreme Lord or meditation on the Supreme Lord, how it advances. Yeah. So we go through the different stages of Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, etc. So in Bhajana Kriya, when we start our practices, meditation or concentration or Krishna is very, very temporary. We go through an artavritti, we get to a nishta stage, we're steady, still, got material things popping up still. When we get to ruchi, we can meditate for a long time, no disturbance. We get to a shakti stage, very deep meditation on the part. We get to bhava stage, Krishna actually appears. That's called spurti. Krishna manifests his form. Prema, direct meeting Krishna constantly. So, sakshatkar. So we don't have to meditate because Krishna's right there. So in the beginning stages of sadhana, we have to use the mind, control the mind, concentrate the mind, etc. But then in bhava, Krishna actually begins to appear, and in prema, he's directly there. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. Bye. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Can I ask a question? Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your wonderful explanation on this matter. So my question is that so is our bhakti rasas are pre-decided or we choose it like Santa Dasya Agya? So how one can recognize so which rasa they want to be or they are in? So everyone,
Devotees.
yes, devotees.
How do we recognize?
How one can recognize that? So
Through
everyone, so in their heart, maybe feeling like they wants to achieve Madhurya rasa. So, but so is that we decide at how in what stage we can know about it?
yeah. So it is through sadhana that the sthayi bhava will manifest in bhava. So depending on your type of sadhana, you will realize different things. If we worship Vishnu, then we'll realize Vishnu. If we worship Rama, we realize Rama. We worship Krishna, we realize Krishna. There's not much choice of rasa with other forms. Now, only with Krishna, if we choose Krishna, then we can say maybe problematic because we get a choice. So, Krishna has all these different rasas with different devotees, and we could get attracted to any of them. And it's nothing wrong with that because it's all Krishna, all spiritual world, all bliss. But, of course, Lord Chaitanya says highest rasa is Madhurya rasa. So, if we are in Lord Chaitanya's sampradaya, exposure is for Madhurya rasa as the prominent one. But that does not mean that everybody must be in Madhurya rasa. So we see in Lord Chaitanya's sampradaya, after his demise, then there was a group of devotees that were cultivating Sakhya rasa in Raganuga. So they were actually followers of Nityananda Prabhu. And those followers were actually cowherd boys in Vrindavan previously, and they became Nityananda's associates in Chaitanya Leela. So they cultivated Sakyarasa. So they were doing this for some time, and it went on for some time. Later on, it died out for some reason. But so therefore, there were some people doing that. And of course, in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Anupama was the brother of Rupa Sanatan. He was worshipping Rama, not Krishna. And Murari Gupta was worshipping Rama, not Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya didn't force them to worship Krishna at all. So therefore, there's within the Gaudiya Sampradaya also, there's emphasis upon Madhurya Rasa, but it's not that everybody has to accept that. We see in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami tells a story of Gopu Kumar, a cowherd boy in Vrindavan, which is not a spiritual person, just a regular cowherd. But then he got a Krishna mantra from a guru, and he began chanting that mantra, and then he gradually developed. So through that mantra, he ended up going to Brahmaloka, then to Shiva Loka, then to Vaikuntha, then to Ayodhya, and then to Dwarka, and then finally he got to Goloka. But when he got to Goloka, what was he? He became a cowherd boy. He didn't become a gopi or a manjari. He became a cowherd boy of all things. So that was his desire. So that's what he got as a result. The devotees' desire. Yeah. Yeah. If everybody desired Madhurya Rasa, there would be nobody in spiritual world except gopis and Krishna. Yeah. In Goloka, there'd be no mothers and fathers, no cowherd boys or anybody. So they're all there, and Krishna has pastimes with all of them, and he accepts them all. So it all depends on our cultivation. Huh? So if we hear and we become attracted to one particular rasa and different devotees in that rasa, then we concentrate on that, and that's what develops in bhava stage and then in prema.
And there are unlimited devotees in entire spiritual world and even in the material world also. But does Krishna always expands himself to everyone and gives his association, or how one can be with Krishna? How uh, one can associate
Yeah.
with Krishna one
Yeah.
to one?
Yeah. So not just with Krishna, even in Vaikuntha, millions of devotees are there. Of course, there's millions of planets also with millions of forms of the Lord. But on one planet, we have, Vishnu there, and then also millions of devotees or whatever. So in any case, whether it's with Krishna, Goloka, or whatever, the Lord cares for every devotee personally. So he can be with every devotee. An example of that is in the pastimes where Krishna is with the cowherd boys and they have their lunch in the forest. This is before the Brahma steals all the calves and cowherd boys. So all the cowherd boys are there. And subscribed there are not thousands, but millions of cowherd boys. And there's one Krishna. And they're all surrounding Krishna. So how does that happen? Millions. One Krishna in the center, millions of people there. How is anyone going to see Krishna? It's stretched for miles. People spread out in circles around Krishna, and Krishna is one person in the center. But Krishna was with every cowherd boy. Every Krishna was directly in front of each cowherd boy, all simultaneous. So there was no problem. So Krishna can expand himself. Sorry, with the gopis. In the Ras Leela, there were 3 billion gopis. But there were 3 billion Krishnas because Krishna was with each gopi. There's a gopi, Krishna, gopi, Krishna. They formed a big ring like this. So there's 3 billion Krishnas and 3 billion gopis in a circle. And each gopi thought, oh, Krishna's only with me. But Krishna was with every single gopi. So Krishna can expand himself unlimitedly to satisfy all of his different devotees.
And so, like Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, so everyone, so we can see they have attended Swarup Siddhi. We know who is Rupa Goswami, is Rupa Manjari, so like that. So, how one can reach that? One can learn about so their constitutional position, like so. Uh, how we came to know about Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami and other acharyas, even up to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So they are this Manjari in the spiritual world. How we identified that?
Well, of course, the Goswamis, etc., associates of Lord Chaitanya, they're identified by persons like Kavi Karnapur and others. So they've written different works in which they identify. These were just right after Lord Chaitanya. So they identified the different personalities and who they are in the spiritual world and whatever as in the pastimes of Krishna. After that, when we get later on, then we don't have that reference. So whatever identity is given is only some people may say like that or whatever like that. It's like Bhakti Siddhanta or Bhakti Vinod. Now they do have in Raganuga Bhakti, they may get a sarup from their Raganuga Guru. So you're so and so Manjari, whatever like that. So that may be what they mention, the so and so sarup. So that's the sarup through they got through the Raganuga Guru. So they may mention that at that time. But that's all. Otherwise, we don't know.
As in that stage, they can able to see Krishna, touch Krishna, taste Krishna when they attend the Swarup Siddhi.
No, that's sadhana. So in Raganuga sadhana, the guru may give you a swarup, but you haven't realized it yet. It's for practice. So it's only a sadhana. So he say, okay, you're a certain manjari, you're a certain age, you're in a certain group, you're a certain service, certain complexion, certain dress. So then you meditate on serving in that form, but it's a practice only. It's not your sarup yet. But by practicing, you get to bhava stage, it becomes your sarup.
So it is Guru who reveals our.
Can.
So
Yeah. Not necessarily. It can also happen internally.
thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, actually in spiritual world, so how will be like daily schedule or how will how a spiritual world will generally daily happen in like may, how they
Spiritual world. So in spiritual world, they have day and night. There's no sun and moon like this world, but they do have day and night. And then if it's in Vrindavan, they will have regular schedules. Krishna wakes up in the morning, takes a bath, puts on his clothing. Mother Yasoda feeds him. Cowherd boys are there. Then they all go out in the fields and play. Then Krishna meets the gopis in the afternoon. Then he goes back to the cowherd boys. Evening he comes back with the cows. Mother Yasoda and Nanda meet him. Then Krishna, he milks the cows, and he takes his dinner nighttime. Yeah? And then they have a big assembly, and then there's acrobatics and all sorts of entertainment for Krishna. Then he goes to bed. Then he goes off for Ras Leela in the middle of the night. Then he comes back in the morning, goes to sleep again. Then he wakes up in the morning. So it's a regular thing like that.
But how will be in, like Nasim Devlok or Mahavishnu Lok?
What? Oh, yeah. In all the different other forms, they will have their pastimes. So, like in Vakuntas, then we have, of course, Vishnu is like supreme and whatever. He's like a king. And then he'll have get up in the morning with great pomp and whatever like this. And then have darshan, and all the citizens can come and see him, whatever. And he does things throughout the day, whatever. And then he's, of course, with his queen or with Lakshmi or whatever. And the different devotees are serving at different times. So, and then we, of course, have other things like Ramchandra or Nrsimhadev. So they'll have their individual schedule, daily schedules like that. And then periodically, they may do something different as well.
Well, sir, actually, if we consider the factor of time, so we consider that past, present, and future will be for this material world, but there won't be any such things in the spiritual world. So, I mean, that how even how we can pursue that sense of the.
So past, present, and future, that perception is also very relative to us. And even on higher planets, time is different. Time durations, like Brahmaloka, is much different from our time. So time is not just absolute as we may think right now. It's very flexible. But past, present, future are part of material time. And it's not there in the spiritual world in the same way. But there's a perception also in the spiritual world enough so the pastime's going on. In other words, the persons can remember, yesterday we had this pastime with Krishna. Today we're having a different pastime. So that much they'll have. But they will never remember, when was Krishna born? I can't remember that time. So that doesn't come in their mind. There was a time, that time back. Something happened, but they don't remember like that. So time is more flexible according to the pastimes and according to the need in the spiritual world. And so there's no anxiety about past, present, future, what happened in the past or what happens in the future, because everything is blissful.
My last point, actually, that is related to time. So, for example, when I am coming, I mean, I am coming down from spiritual world to this world. I leave that body and come here, and by the time I go and I'll take that body, or else that body is dead in there in the spiritual world, sleeping in there in the spiritual world. I mean, my original body in spiritual world.
Original spiritual body. Yeah. Well, the acharyas don't say that you have a body that you left and returned to, because if you left the body, it means you fell from the spiritual world. Yeah. But we do say that you attain a spiritual body which is eternal. Yeah. So somehow that body is always with Krishna, and you attain it. It manifests for you.
Sorry, last question. So, the reason for exact reason for coming down from spiritual to material world, so it is said like we are rebellious against Krishna and we are envious about Krishna and we came down. That is the reason said. But what is the exact reason? But some I heard in some lectures that we might not know what is the exact reason we came to material world. So how we.
So, in one sense, there's no question of when, because we're described as being anadi bahirmukha, no beginning. So you cannot trace out a when. So therefore, we're envious of Krishna, but we cannot say when we're not envious of Krishna. Okay? So we're simply envious of Krishna, and we're in the material world. Okay? So in that way, we don't have to put a beginning on it, when we become. But nevertheless, everybody does have eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, because we're intrinsically all servants of the Lord. We're all amsas as jivas, etc., tatastha shakti, etc.
How the fall down happens, Maharaj, from spiritual world to
Well, as
material.
I'm saying, you cannot ask that question, because we're talking about when, or something which is eternal in the spiritual world.
How we'll fall down from
But I'm
spiritual
saying you can't
world?
ask that question, because you're putting a time on the spiritual world. Yeah? And time, only this time of past, present, future with when in it, only exists in the material world.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Is the living entities who are part and parcels of Krishna, does are they fixed, or Krishna can always give birth to more souls, more living entities?
Oh, can it be more?
Always does he?
Well, definition of jiva is they're eternal. So they're never created. So we cannot create more. They're all eternal. They've always existed, but they may not be visible in the material world. They're sitting in somewhere in Mahavishnu, and then they come out at a certain time. But there's no creation as such of jivas.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, in which stage of bhakti the three modes of material nature does not act on us?
What is that? What stage of bhakti is this?
In which
Oh, three levels of material nature. Well, if we get to bhava stage, then no more karma, no more ahankara. So no more gunas.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When you're explaining Santarasa, you mentioned that in Goloka we can experience this Santarasa in a very childhood and in the old age.
Yeah.
So in Goloka also there will be old age and youth. These stages, whatever we'll experience in it.
Yeah. So we have young cowherd boys, we have older cowherd boys, we have elders who are in Vatsalya Ras, we have Nanda and Yasoda. And Nanda also is quite old. He's got white hair. Well, they're eternally like that. It's not that they age. So the cowherd boys don't grow up and they don't become old. The cowherd boys are eternally that age. The babies are eternally babies. In spiritual world, no. When he's in the material world, then of course he grows until Kaishor, but he doesn't age beyond that. Yeah, Kaishor age only.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So if one is in prema stage and he leaves this material world, this material body, from till this point to the point where he reaches the spiritual world, what is the process? So what happens? Does Vishnu Dutas come, or
Oh,
who comes?
so he may go to a universe where Krishna's performing his pastime, if he's worshiper of Krishna, if he's got prema. And then he participates in those pastimes, and then after that, then he goes to the spiritual world. Or he could go directly to the spiritual world also. But there's no defined process by which that happens. In the Upanishads, there is a process where the devatas of the month and the year, whatever, they accompany you upwards. And then you meet the associates of the Lord, and then you go out to Vaikuntha or whatever like that. So that's called the path of light. Huh? The, the path of the sun, or like that. Then we have the path of darkness, where you go to the Svargalok and fall down again. So it's that's not described in relation with devotional service, strong devotional service for the Lord, and especially with Krishna. So you just end up in the spiritual world, or in Krishna's pastimes in the material world, which is equivalent to the spiritual world.
Yes, man. One more question, Maharaj. So when one is in Vaikuntha, so if you do they desire to go to Goloka, or they are satisfied there itself? So if one wants to be promoted to Goloka, so can what he can do, like that soul can do to go
Yeah.
to that?
So to get to anywhere in the spiritual world, we go because we have a sthai bhava. Sthai bhava means your permanent bhava. So that doesn't change. So that develops in bhava and prema. And then you go to the spiritual world. So that means you don't change after that. If that were the case, spiritual world would be very unstable. Everybody switching places all the time. It's like Indians trying to go to America, America's trying to go to India, whatever like this. Everybody's switching places. It would be very unstable.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Last class in one slide you mentioned about karma two types, sin and pit.
Two
Then
types of
two types, Sin and piety.
Huh?
Piety.
Yeah.
Then why Lord create Narkaloka? If one person do any mistake, why can't God punish him here directly? If God punish him here directly, he won't do that mistake again.
What's that? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we don't get all punishment and hell, only this very serious things. Yeah? So the other things remain as karmas. Some punishments very severe, then you get hellish punishments. If it's not so severe, you don't have to get hellish punishments. You just get the karmas. So two types of punishment.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, we see that many devotees coming to Krishna consciousness and in due course of time they leave. So we see many devotees are leaving the movement or leaving Krishna consciousness. So generally we preach to the who are not introduced to Krishna consciousness. And many devotees who left the Krishna consciousness are mostly due to aparadhas. So how we can bring them back to Krishna consciousness?
Mhm. Well, if they leave due to aparads, and depending on the seriousness of the aparad, it may be correctable. And then by doing some bhakti, gradually their taste can increase, faith can increase, and they can take to bhakti again. If it's very serious aparad, then they have no taste at all. Then they have to wait a few lifetimes. Which ones? Yeah, well, if it's very serious, it may be difficult to help them in this lifetime. Because you try to help them, they'll refuse to take your advice. So very, very difficult. Others who have not committed such serious uparads, then they can accept some advice and help, and then we can associate with them and encourage them some way or other to do a little devotional service. So we should never be unfavorable or hate them or anything. We should be compassionate to them, and we should try to help them. And if they accept, fine, we can keep doing that.
Krishna Maharaj. So there are more chances are there to get deviate. That means thinking that I am in this bhava, I got ruchi, I am in prema. So like that kind of speculation or
Yeah.
thinking, and then sometimes we'll say, so Prabhu, you are not in that bhava, I am in bhava. So like that, and then we'll tell, so you're not experiencing that, I will tell you, so you can experience that also. These kind of things, there are more chances are there to deviate. So how we can identify for an individual, and then how we can see another devotees also and take some preventive action.
Yeah. So we do require some knowledge of the different stages of bhakti. As I said here, there are like genuine ruchi, and there's the ruchi which is superficial, etc. And then there's bhava, and in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami also has bhava bhas, where people may show symptoms, sattvika bhavas, so they say, oh, he's bhava or prema, but it's all imitation. Other persons may not be imitating, but they're only in sadhana, but they may also cry, and they may also faint, but they're definitely not in bhava. So this is not so serious, but nevertheless, it's not true. So anyone who's at that stage where they have bhava bhas, but it's not real, they should take the advice of devotees and practice seriously. And then through that, eventually they can attain bhava. So we should have some education to understand and recognize different symptoms, different stages of bhakti, etc. If somebody has been practicing for 1 month or 2 days or 3 days and they start developing bhava symptoms, obviously we can't believe it. But some people in the material world see that, immediately they start worshiping them. So we have to have some knowledge also of what is real bhava, what is stages before bhava, shakti, ruchi, etc. And if a person goes through those stages to reach the bhava, fine, we can accept that. But suddenly just start showing symptoms, and then we shouldn't accept it. So we need some knowledge to do that.
If someone of our devotee is showing like that, what we have to do?
Well, if they're showing, devotees are showing those stages, devotees? You have in their temple, Tirupati temple, they're doing that. Yeah. Usually, we won't find it among devotees. We'll find it among, particularly in Bengal. We'll have so many people doing that in the villages or whatever, and sahajiyas and whatever. In Bangladesh also, you'll find people that do start crying and fainting and whatever on any little provocation or whatever. So that generally we always accept this is all fake anyway, so we don't accept it. So it happens. If they're a devotee, of course, then we should give them some good knowledge. If they're not a devotee, we can kind of ignore them. Yeah. Well, generally, if it's happening among materialists, then we know it is fake. They're not having any sadhana. They're not following any principles, etc. Yeah. So we know, for instance, in Bengal and Bangladesh, they have kirtan groups, and when they do kirtan, then they have ecstatic symptoms, and they may faint. But when they're not doing kirtan, there's regular people smoking and doing whatever. So then we know not real devotees. So how can they have those symptoms?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So as you have mentioned that Sthai Bhava is developed at Bhava or Prema stage, and it's a sort of cultivation, the process and the method which you have applied based on Guru Sadhu and Shastra. So now there are some other devotees who, different varieties of devotees we find within ISKCON, outside ISKCON, different sampradayas also. And sometimes we get to hear that Prabhupada did not give everything, but we hear that we know, we have faith that Prabhupada has given us everything. At the same time, some people will claim like this and they try to go away and they try to, even during the Prabhupada time also, they were trying to kind of practicing some kind of Siddha Swarup Pranali mantra and some other kind of methods to understand their Swarupa. But we know that Prabhupada had given us everything. But how do we properly, philosophically, we can tell to others that how we have everything with us or what Prabhupada had given us
Yeah.
to achieve the highest goal?
So what is everything? So even if you go to these other people and you say, "Give me everything," they will not give you everything because Krishna is unlimited. All they could give you is Sarup Siddhi or whatever, like just a formula. You get a name, you get a color, you get a service, etc. That they could give you. But everything they could not give you. So they can't give you everything. Nobody can give you everything. So now that Sarup Siddhi, etc., is there, but it's also not obligatory or absolutely necessary. So nowhere does Rupa Goswami say you must go to a guru and get your Sarup Siddhi. Doesn't say that anywhere in Nectar Devotion or any of his works, or even Vishnu Chakravarti doesn't say that. He's written a whole book on Raganuga. So he says you could get it from a guru, you could get it from a devotee, you could even develop it internally, your Sarup. Any of those methods. And I think it is Gorkishore Babaji said, chant Hare Krishna, your Sarup will be revealed. So we get Hare Krishna from Prabhupada, we get everything. One sense. Well, Lord Chaitanya, what did he teach? He never taught Radhe anywhere. So we're following Lord Chaitanya and what he taught, not what other people are teaching.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the first session, you explained about how to understand Krishna. And a great personality like Brahma may not understand Krishna properly, but by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can understand Krishna. How can we get that mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
How we get mercy of Lord Chaitanya? Well, one, we're coming in his sampradaya. We're following his teachings. We have Chaitanya Charitamrita. We follow the works of the Goswamis who were empowered by Lord Chaitanya to present his teachings. So based on that, we're taking the commentaries of the Acharyas. So Prabhupada's commentary on Bhagavad Gita, commentary on Bhagavatam based upon Acharya's commentaries. So this is one way in which we get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. We see the scripture through the eyes of Lord Chaitanya and his followers. The other way, of course, is by following Lord Chaitanya's orders. What did Lord Chaitanya say? You chant the holy name, associate with devotees, worship Krishna, etc. Follow the orders of Lord Chaitanya. Chant the holy name, etc. So just by following his orders and following the directions given by the acharyas, we get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. So, from devotees, we hear the pastimes of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. We hear that these pujaris, or even in Jagannath also, the pandas, and they will directly speak with Lord. Like they're having their material body, and they directly speak with Lord and do pastimes with the Lord. How to take that, Maharaj? So, is that they are doing the pastimes like by having the spiritual body, or they are doing like having the material body?
I mean, pujaris speaking to the Lord.
Ah,
Well, it would depend on the case. There may be some pujaris who are very advanced devotees and can have direct speaking with the Lord. We see Lord Chaitanya's associates and the second generation. Sometimes they were speaking to the deity would respond, etc. So for very advanced devotees, that may be so. With others, it may not be directly that they are perceiving and speaking with the Lord. So it may not be direct. But it's hard for us to distinguish between them. We don't know.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So we see in Golok Vrindavan there are devotee cow, devotee monkey, and other species. So do do we get the same form like Krishna, like a two-hand form, or do we also get animal form in spiritual world? So if we get animal form, like how, what is that other factors like?
One could require by possibility get any form in the spiritual world, but we're encouraged to get a human form because rasa can develop nicely with that form. But you see in rasa we have Krishna, and then we have conversations with the gopis of the cowherd boys. And in the conversation, then there's all the subtlety of rasa because they play with words and do so many things, jokes and whatever. If you have cows or birds, it does not take place. You don't have elevated conversations based on grammatical rules or anything like that with birds or cows or bees or whatever. Nevertheless, everything is devotional, but still, the rasa doesn't really develop with those forms. But with the human forms, then we get a more subtle and intricate development of rasa. So those are always preferable.
One more question, Maharaj. Can we find Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu in Golok Vrindavan,
Chaitanya,
Maharaj? Yeah.
no, he is a separate, he is non-different from Krishna, but he has a different form. So therefore, he's a different place in the spiritual world. Yeah. Different dharma.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So initially, while starting our devotional service, we will start with Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and at that time we will believe that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. But as we progressing, how it is transformed or transitioned into the Raganuga Bhakti, where we intimately relate with Krishna.
Mhm. So a transformation can take place by hearing pastimes of Krishna from Bhagavatam in Vrindavan. And then we begin to admire the devotees like Mother Yasoda or Nanda or the cowherd boys or the gopis who don't see Krishna as God. So we develop an attraction for that type of love, and then we aspire for a similar type of relationship.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So here in this material world, we that means that there are these many years. He is senior, junior, so guru disciple relationships are there. Like like that in the spiritual world also is there like that senior, junior, or guru and disciple relationships.
Yeah. So in the spiritual world, yes, we do have relationships. So we do have, of course, like among the gopis, we'll have the senior gopis. Radha is the topmost, and nobody will ever interfere with her position. We got the 8 Sakis who are also very high up. And then we have people lesser, lesser, lesser. So we have some sort of hierarchy there as well in the spiritual world. So that will be there among all the different types of devotees. There'll be the most prominent ones, and then we'll have the persons in lower positions.
So one can able to recognize one's guru after going to spiritual world. Like now we got spiritual master here.
Yeah.
After going back to spiritual world, one can
Yeah.
recognize.
If we developed a relationship which is spiritual, then we can recognize any spiritual relationship. But we will not recognize the body. It'll be completely different.
And all other devotees among
Yeah, they
here.
all have different bodies. So we'll have to recognize them by our spiritual relationship, not by the form they have in the material world.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had in so many pastimes, all demigods like Brahmaji and Lord Shiva trying to pose that Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead in many pastimes. But when I went to Dhanushkoti, I saw deity Lord Ram worshipping Lord Shiva. What we can understand from this, Maharaj?
Yeah. So sometimes Supreme Lord worship other forms, or even in Bhagavatam, we'll find Rukmini going to the Durga temple and praying to Durga Devi or whatever like that. Or we see the young gopis, unmarried gopis, they are worshiping Katyayani, another form of Durga. In terms of pastimes, or even the Radharani goes to the sun god temple, worships there in order to meet Krishna. So we find these worship of devatas are there for pastimes. At the same time, we see that in Nandagram there, Nanda Maharaj has a temple of Vishnu. Yeah. So there may be worship of devatas for pastimes, for the different forms of Krishna, etc. And even for Rama, they may worship devatas, etc. So this is something like the Puranas. There's Puranas glorifying Lord Shiva, Shiva Purana, Skanda Purana, etc. 6 Puranas in which Shiva is heavily glorified as being supreme and even greater than Vishnu. So these, of course, are there for people in the lower modes, people in Tamagun. So sometimes we'll find directions given for people in the lower modes, people attracted to worship of Shiva or Durga, etc. So the Supreme Lord himself may concede to that and help people worship those forms by, let's say, Rama worshiping Shiva or Rukmini worshiping Durga, etc., to help people in the material world get their faith in those particular deities. But it by no means means that they're supreme.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When a devotee goes to spiritual world, does he remember his last life?
Material world? No.
Goes to spiritual world. When a devotee goes to spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead, do he remember the past life he spent, how much bhakti he practiced for Krishna? Do he remember?
Does he remember his past? It's all spiritual. Yeah? So we don't remember things of the material world at that point, only spiritual world. And of course, as I said, it's always in the present. So you're not remembering what happened before. You're always thinking of what's happening now.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, actually, after fixing on the Sthai Bhava only, we will got elevated to the spiritual world. But generally, in one of the lectures I have had, like when we are attaining the perfection to the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha plane will come. And when we are on the plane, actually, if we got attracted to any of the other worlds, we will get down there itself.
Well, if you have prema, you wouldn't be attracted.
And also, Maharaj, even the devotee who is fixed in the Shanta Bhava also will achieve prema.
Yep. Chanta is prema also. You have rasa there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. As we see in Tirupati, many people come to Lord Balaji with material dealings, with material bhava to get business dealing. So their dealings will get fulfilled.
Will their desires get fulfilled? Well, Krishna, or any form of the Supreme Lord, is like a desire tree or a Chintamani stone. So whatever you ask for, he can give you. So if you want material things, Supreme Lord can very easily arrange that. If you want liberation, Lord can also give that. If you want prema, Lord can also give that. So Lord can give all things, as bhakti can give all things. So by doing bhakti, you can get material things, you can get liberation, you can also get prema.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you said that when devotees went to spiritual world, they will not remember anything from this material world. They will forget everything. How come spiritual master remembers every disciple who he initiated, and how he guarantees that he will take everyone to spiritual world? Because he forgets na.
Well, if he's in the material world and then he's delivering them, he's delivering them from the material world. So that's still part of the material world. In the spiritual world, then they only have memory of their spiritual relationship. That's all, not a material relationship. As I said, if we identify spiritual relationship, they recognize each other in that way.
Means spiritual master who went to spiritual world and the disciples are here in material world. How
Well,
he
in that case, then all that is taken care of by agents. So the Lord could assign somebody else to help deliver that person.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. How spiritual relationships can be established between devotees, Maharaj? How spiritual relationships can be established between devotees, Maharaj?
How can we establish spiritual relationships?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if everything is centered on serving Krishna, it becomes spiritual.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I'm very excited to know how you got in contact with Srila Prabhupada and what inspired to take the process of Krishna consciousness.
How I got well, I met the devotees in Tokyo, and then Prabhupada came to Tokyo, so that's how I met him.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, in day-to-day life, like when I go to like office and do my routine work, early in the morning, when I do sadhana, I'm servant of Krishna. This identification is more when day passes ahead, all that forgetfulness. I started misidentifying we mm, words will influence on me. At that time, this philosophy practically evaporates. So, how to rescue from this situation, and I try to convince myself that I should not misidentify with my body. I should not misidentify with my false ego.
That's when you're working.
Working and going outside and doing my routine work.
Well, even if you're not working and you're just a full-time devotee, depending on your consciousness, you may identify with your material body and the surroundings, etc., or not. So it all depends on your strength of your Krishna consciousness. Yeah? So even persons who are very advanced, they may be doing material duties, like the ancient kings, like Ambarish. He was king of the whole world, so he had duties to perform, but he was not attached to that, not affected by that at all, and he was completely devoted to the Supreme Lord. Or we find, of course, the Nityasiddhas like Yudhisthira. King of the world has to manage everything, but again, not affected by any of those duties because he's doing everything for Krishna. So it depends upon your how much fixed you are on serving Krishna. And you could do things in the material world, less or more, whatever. But it all depends on how steady you are in being fixed on Krishna. That's all. So if we can become steady by being fixed in our sadhana, then we're not so affected by the material world and the things that happen, even if we're working.
Maharaj, even while rendering service also, that time will be immersed in the service and so doesn't able to think about Krishna, remember Krishna, meditating that I am doing this service for Krishna. So just we are doing the service. Then again after completing the service, we'll come back and then while doing sadhana, then we remembering Krishna. How we can able to remember even while doing rendering the service?
Well, even if we don't remember Krishna when they're doing the actual service, there's no loss in doing that. But of course, if we can remember at the same time that this is actually we're doing it for Krishna, and therefore we are enthusiastic to do it, that's even better. So if we could do the service, and when we're doing it, always remember this is always for Krishna. So nothing to do with me. So I'll do it to the best of my ability to please Krishna. That's the best attitude to take. But even if we can't remember Krishna, we do the service. There's nothing wrong with that also.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The devotees who praise the Radharani were loved by Krishna, directly loved by Krishna.
Devotees who praise Radharani. So
Krishna loves them, but without praising Radharani, does Krishna loves those devotees also?
They don't worship. They don't praise Radharani. Well, of course, we're supposed to go through the mercy of Radha to get to Krishna. Yeah? So in one sense, we can never neglect Radha, yeah? And therefore we have Hare before we say Krishna. Yeah? So in that sense, we do it. At the same time, our acharyas, and particularly Prabhupada, he says he doesn't like us directly just saying Radhe, 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 etc., directly to Radha. So if we're going to praise Radha, we go through Hare Krishna instead. Yeah? And of course, we can read the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, etc. But our approach should always be one of a little bit of caution, because people who get so absorbed that sometimes go off into fake raganuga or whatever, and they may have sahaja tendencies, etc. So we have to be aware of that also. Yeah. So one can, of course, worship Krishna. Krishna is all merciful, and we see that that's there in the past, and other sampradayas also they may do that. So you can also do that, but then the realization will be somewhat different also.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, when we are out of association in colleges, homes, generally in Bhakti, we will be in mode of serving mode, the trance mode we will be. So we will see Krishna in everywhere, Maharaj. So in that state of mind, when we are dealing with non-devotees, anti-devotees, there is a chance that they will take advantage of our humbleness and our serving tendency. Which will affect which will by which we can be cheated also. So how can we deal by having Krishna in heart and also dealing with anti devotees,
Dealing with
anti devotees and non devotees?
anti-devotees, non-devotees. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, we have to deal with the material world to some extent. Everybody has to deal with the material world, and we also have to be humble and tolerant, etc. At the same time, uh, there's no rule that we have to be taken advantage of by everybody. So that's not there. So we have to use our intelligence to see that people don't take undue advantage of the devotees simply because they're humble or tolerant. We have to use our intelligence to see how to do that. That's all.
Maharaj, next question is, when we are in this process of Bhakti Yoga, every step Maya will pull us down. Just like mind will act as servant of Maya, it will generate the entire information to come down. It will act as a like chat GPT. It will generate some nonsense information to pull us down. How can we be restricted from the influence of mind acted by orders of Maya?
Yeah. Well, if we fill our mind more and more with topics of Krishna, then these other topics will leave. Yeah? So the more we absorb the topic of Krishna, then the less likely we are to get tempted by Maya. And that's the whole thing we're talking about. The more you become attracted to Krishna, the less Maya is going to influence you. And it's 100% there in prema, maybe it's half in nishta, and it's less in before that stage when we're anishita bhakti, etc. So by practicing bhakti, gradually the maya decreases, becomes less strong, and bhakti becomes stronger. So by concentrating on the bhakti portion, then automatically the maya portion becomes weaker.
Krishna Maharaj. So from the within the process, like Shraddha to Prema, so what will drive us from each and every step to move forward? So yes, I am in Shraddha. I want to move forward. I want to move forward. So what is the major factor which we need in spiritual life so we will keep on going and then we can reach our goal of Prema?
Of course, one is faith. So we have faith in the scriptures, faith in the statements of devotees, etc. The second, of course, is the association of devotees themselves, and that association encourages us to advance. Third is our own experience. So by bhakti, we should develop some sort of experience, positive experience. I said gradually the bhakti increases and the anarthas decrease, etc. So in that, the taste begins to increase until we get to ruchi stage. So let's say the increase of taste will also be a measure, an inspiration for us to go further. Yeah. Well, if we're like at nishta stage, we can quite easily do it. If we're before that stage, it may be more difficult.
You mentioned one statement, Maharaj. Bhakti is the cause of the bhakti.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Caused by karma or jnana or tapasya or punyas, etc. Because it's spiritual world, and all these other processes are material.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, we heard that Tukaram Maharaj went directly with the self-same body to the back to Godhead. How we can understand that?
So that's also, I think, Narada Muni, Dhruva also. So special cases are there where the form of the material body transforms into a spiritual body, but it's the same form. So those are special cases arranged by the Supreme Lord.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, we have discussed already while doing devotional service, other things. So there is also offenses like that is there. Hare Krishna Maharaj. So while doing devotional services, there is their offenses, aparadas like anarthas. When we go to outside to do book distribution, sometimes we forget like our service. We will deal with metal people like metal people while distributing books to other people like metal. We may forget Krishna also, but even though we are having handing Bhagavad Gita also, we forget Krishna and we will deal like metal people. Is it offense? Like Maharaj. Actually, Maharaj, my question is actually we can't tell this like this philosophy, this devotional service. They can't listen also. They will not give time also. We will deal like material people, other marketing people like.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so in preaching, we do have to be careful that it doesn't become a material process, like material marketing. If it does, then there's a danger that we can also lose our consciousness. So when we're distributing books, we have to be quite spiritually fixed. So we should have steady sadhana, etc., so that it doesn't become a material process. Secondly, we're told not to preach to the faithless people. So, how do we preach Krishna consciousness and make them take a book or whatever like that if they're materialists? So we have to use our intelligence to see who may have susceptibility to preaching, who may have a little faith, etc. And if there's such people, then we can actually preach whatever with it. Other people, we could cleverly maybe use a sales tactic to make them take the book, but then ultimately it's probably not going to be so successful because they'll take the book but they'll never read it or they may throw it out or whatever. So in doing book distribution, we should also see, judge a little bit if the person is favorable enough and they're actually going to maybe read the book. So with those persons, then we can actually preach nicely and then we don't lose our Krishna consciousness and try to sell the book by hook or crook.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the second session, you explained about due to the previous offenses we do anarthas. Actually, I have no idea about what is offense, what is anartha, and what is aparadha. Can you please explain about these?
The previous offenses, we don't know. Yeah?
What is the meaning of actually offense, aparadha, and anartha? A real definition of these three. Difference between both.
Oh, well, offense and aparad are the same thing. That's what aparad means, offense. Offense means, of course, if we're talking about nam aparads, it means one, offense against the Lord. We think the names of the devatas are equal to the Supreme Lord, or the Supreme Lord has a material body, or the name is material. So this is one type of offense. The other is offense against the process of bhakti. Thinking bhakti or chanting the holy name is a material process. That's called offense. Or offense against the devotees of the Lord. That's Vaishnava. So these are all offense. It's a sin, of course, but it's a sin against the devotee or against Krishna or against devotional service. So that's what we call aparad, namaparas. So anartas are all of the obstacles to the process of bhakti, and these obstacles will be material things based ultimately upon ignorance. So we had avidya at the top, then we had asmita and raga and devesha and abhidavesha. So out of that, we get anartas, maybe lust, anger, greed, fear, or whatever, attachment, envy, so many different things come out of it. So they're all called anartas, arising originally from ignorance of the jiva.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So there are so many stages in the bhakti up to the prema, but so to travel to the prema stage, so what is the one main thing that motivated you to keep going to achieve that final goal?
What is the motivation? Well, somewhat similar to the other question, that how do we keep continuing devotional service, etc. So, of course, is we have faith in Scripture, and that the final goal is that. So that's the motivation. Hearing about the pastimes of the Lord and having a goal of attaining that eventually. And of course, the other is, of course, developing a taste. So the more we develop taste, then the more we're motivated to get that goal.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my question is, I see my god brothers, their natural inclination, someone engaged in DT department, someone in kitchen department, someone in singing, someone in book distribution, like that. But whereas myself, I'm really unfortunate to have any of these. Like, I'm not into specialized relationship with any of these services. So how do I develop natural inclination to that one main core service, like so like they do? So still I don't have any of those. So what should I do?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, if you're talking about your own interest in a particular service, that develop naturally by development of devotional service. So by hearing and chanting, and then we may develop an inclination in one particular direction. By the mercy of Krishna, he'll arrange that for you. So if we don't have any particular thing now, by the mercy of Krishna, eventually he'll arrange it.
So Maharaj, one last question. So whatever their natural inclination is there in this life, so if they go back to Godhead, so they do the same things over there,
Same what?
same activities like they perform here.
Oh, not necessarily, because we may be doing some service now, which is directed towards, let's say, building a temple or whatever like that, or raising funds. So we're not obviously going to do that in the spiritual world. Everything is permanent there. The temples are already there, so we're not raising funds. There's no money there also. So some things which are very intimately involved with the material world will not be there. But what will be there will be the service to Krishna somehow or other, to please Krishna. The service may be somewhat different. Some services will be eternal. So hearing and chanting are eternal. We do them here in the material world. We do them in the spiritual world. So there's kirtan in the spiritual world. There's hearing about Krishna in the spiritual world. There's worship of Krishna in the spiritual world. Those things will be eternal.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. We'd like to have a group photo, Maharaj, with you. Group photo.